Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Strategy Through Uncertainty with George Liacos. My name is Kevin, and I look forward to hosting today's Creative Connections webinar. I would like to start by warmly acknowledging the traditional owners of countries throughout Australia and where you are today. I myself come to you from the lands of the Gamaragal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my deep respect to elders past, present, and emerging. If you would like, please feel free to share the country that you are coming from and want to acknowledge in the chat feature. Currently on screen is a blue PowerPoint holding slide with some text and videos with our guest speaker and our interpreter. I am a man in my early 40s with fair skin, brown eyes, and dark brown hair. Today I'm wearing a grey jumper and sitting in front of a black backdrop. Welcome again to today's session, everyone. It's great to have you with us. We are excited to see that you are returning to learn and to share and explore some of these concepts that are helping all of us through these complex times. I invite you to continue to join us as we deliver these series to you. Before I hand over to George, just a quick reminder that a range of Australia Council funding opportunities are currently open. You most probably are aware of these, but the next funding round is closing on the 1st of September. There's, of course, opportunities available for both arts projects for individuals and groups, organisations, and a range of other opportunities, including our fellowship program. A reminder that you can access all of the detail on our website, which is www.australiacouncil.gov.au for more information. Before we kick off, just a quick reminder on some housekeeping. Again, if you would like to follow the closed caption, please switch that on by using the feature at the bottom of the screen, or if you're using a mobile, at the top. Also, today's session will be recorded and we will be sending a link to everyone who's registered, most probably towards the end or early next week. We're also hosting a quick Q&A session at the end, so if you've got a burning question or want to learn more about strategy and want to ask George that question, feel free to submit it in the Q&A again at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest today. Currently on screen is, again, a blue PowerPoint slide to introduce our guest speaker. There's a title to introduce George Liacos. Next to his portrait headshot, a man with fair skin, dark hair, smiling at the camera. He's wearing a blue jacket and a white collared shirt in front of a black background. So George is the Managing Director, Founder and Chief Strategist of Spark Strategy, a not-for-profit agency specializing in strategic thinking, transformation, and sustainability in action. George works across sectors to bring people and organizations together around their purpose and social impact. He's a speaker and a thinker, and it's great that he's joining us today. George has helped hundreds of not-for-profits, for instance, explore financial resilience, change management, and finding new ways of thinking. So strategizing and making plans at best of times is tough work. Making plans and the right decisions for this uncertain times is maybe the hardest. As many arts organizations and leaders, how can we rethink this critical part of our days around strategizing? It's fantastic that George can join us today to explore this topic. Over the years, I have stayed very close to George and his team's work. And I think they do fantastic work, and it's really great that he can spend some time with us today and share his thoughts. George, thanks for joining us, and I'll just hand over to you, and I believe that we're going to swap screens now, so you've got some slides to share. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's get the technology rolling first of all. All right. So I've brought up a slide now, which is basically an intro as to what we'll be talking about over these next 35 to 40 minutes. But before we get into the content, I just want to say thank you very much for coming along to this session. I hope you've got a nice warm cup of tea and you're ready to settle into a conversation which might not be about strategy as usual. In the approach that I take to strategic planning, it's very much around the humanist approach. And as humans, we've been thoroughly impacted by what's happened in 2020. So I'm just passing through a title slide which says, well, 2020 happened. And I'm going to move into a little bit of content. And I hope that you feel free to use the chat box. Francis is ready to take your concepts and your thoughts. And if we can't get to you in session, we'll get to you towards the end. There will be time for questions. So I wanted to just come to an understanding that when we think about strategy in uncertain times, the 5 points that I've just moved onto this slide really help us break that strategy down into manageable chunks. So in my slide, I've got 5 steps and I'm going to walk with them at the moment. So the first step one is breathe and reframe. Many of us in uncertainty feel that the need to get control over our lives and to take action, some form of action, any form of action. But really the first step is to breathe and reset our thinking. And we're going to talk about each of these 5 steps in detail. The second step is around chunking up the elephant. We've all heard about eating the chocolate elephant. Well, we've got to work out how much we can actually bite off and which bits we should be biting off first. The third one is leaning into our strengths. From the art sector, you'd be very well accustomed to this concept, and people often forget it. They start to become too ambitious in uncertainty. They start to grab at too many different things. Really, it's an exercise in focus, leaning into our strengths. The fourth step is then refreshing our plan. You'll notice that we don't dive into the plan in steps 1, 2, or 3. We wait here to refresh our plan. And then finally is relentlessly execute. We're going to talk about this a little bit further on, but just to pause on this point for a moment, what organizations and people and leaders often do is they set a plan, and yes, you have to be a little bit flexible and you have to pivot, but then they go off plan. They go onto strange and new initiatives out of desperation. If you've done steps 1, 2, 3 correctly, step 4, refreshing your plan, will be clear and you'll be able to implement and execute against that. And I just want to say this, strategy is always about uncertainty. Very rarely will you come to a situation where you can be certain about all things, because then we'll be in a situation where we don't really need a strategy. So let's just embrace uncertainty. I'm not meaning that flippantly. I completely understand for many of us, times are really tough now. But what I'm going to walk you through is maybe some pragmatic and practical approaches to addressing strategy in these times. So the next slide is very much, again, a list of 4 items. And I want to take us back as part of our breathing and reframing, our step 1. I'd like to take us back to some ancient traditions. I've done a lot of work, especially over the last probably 8 years, with many of our remote Aboriginal communities. And I also have taken myself off to Bhutan to understand some of the ancient traditions and understand how they are relevant for the work that I do in social sector strategy. And I think I can encapsulate that learning and those thinking in these 4 points. When you're breathing and reframing, firstly, just talk to yourself around the purpose. Why do you do what you do? Why does your organization do what it does? Why do you exist in a new world of uncertainty? And should you continue to exist in that world? If you can create a strong foundation around personal and professional purpose as a leader of your organization, you will set a really strong platform for the rest of the team to follow. Now I'm also going to lean into some more of these ancient traditions and say, I look at a 3-step approach. As a leader, first of all, what's going on with yourself? Are you ready to lead? Second of all, what have you got to do with your team to deeply connect to them and connect them to the purpose? And then finally, what can you do to deeply connect your team to the world around you? Purpose, self, team, and world. If you can get a sense of those 4 steps as part of the breathing and reframing, you'll be in a really strong position to understand the world around you and make clean and clear decisions about your strategic intent and where you're going to take your organization. Some people take a retreat, some people take space away to do this work, and it might seem like an incongruous time now to take time, but now is exactly the right time to take time. Let's move on to the next slide. And I think in terms of, this is step 2, chunking up the elephant. It's a slide that has 3 major bullet points that I'm going to walk through. So once we've taken time to breathe and reframe our thinking, we've now got to look at this massive job in front of us to try and work out what is strategy and what should it be in times of uncertainty. And I think we can do that by looking at 3 time horizons. Let's not try and break everything up. Let's just look in 3 distinct horizons. First of all, the first horizon, now. What decisive action do we need to take now? Spark Strategy, we've published a series of white papers. I'm going to refer to them as we go through our session today. And the first one I'm referring to is a white paper called Times of Crisis Part 1. We did this in partnership with Pro Bono Australia, and you can find it on our website. If you can't find any of the references that I talked to during the course of this session, my email address is on the back slide of the session. And just for your reference now, it's quite simply george@sparkstrategy.com.au. If you can't find any of the resources, feel free to email me and we'll send them through to you. So let's come back to our chunking up the elephant. Now, decisive action. The next time frame is next. How do we build back better? And the final time frame is after. What's the future really look like? This might sound a little bit strange, but let's just walk through it in a little bit more detail. Now, what's happening in the next 6 months? Next, what's happening 6 to 18 months? After, what's happening 18 months plus? If you can start to get your thinking in those 3 time horizons, you will turn what looks like an insurmountable amount of thinking and work, you'll turn that into something really manageable that you can put your arms around along with your team. So we've got a white paper for each of those topics. Feel free to email me if you can't find the reference. I just want to step through next and after because they're so critical. Now I'm sure you're all dealing with all the decisive action you need to take. But the next bit, the building back better, is actually vital. If you can design through this process an organization that comes out of this stronger, more resilient than it went going in, you're on the right track. And this might sound to you like a consultant talking who doesn't understand your operational pressures, but believe me, right now we are working with literally tens of organizations right now, but over this year, close to 200 who have all had to go through this process. So it's doable, just have faith in the process. After Future Reimagined, do you know, this is one of my favorite areas for dreaming. I know it's not necessarily always that practical, but we do need to put a time horizon that's distant and aspirational, and more importantly, inspirational, that keeps you getting up and not thinking, how am I going to just pay the bills this week? But keeps you thinking, I'm paying the bills this week so we can achieve a greater outcome in the future. So first step was we breathed, we took some time to reframe our thinking. The second step was we broke up the time and the task in front of us into 3 distinct horizons. I'm now moving slides because I want to talk about decisiveness a little bit before I get onto the third step. So when I talk about decisive action, I've got probably 6 things in front of me, and the slide in front of me has 6 boxes, each with some text in it. But fundamentally, I'd just like you to focus on this. In the now phase, protect your existing income, make any hard calls that you need to make and make them larger rather than smaller, then look to generating new revenue. So if you do nothing else in the now, protect your existing income, make the hard calls, and then look to generating income, and in that order. And here are 6, they're written on the slide, 6 things that I'd like you to think about when you turn to your organization in preparing your mind for strategic thinking. First of all, have you applied for all the government stimulus opportunities? And there's a lot of websites now providing links to where to go to find out what's available. Number 2, have you had a hard look at your business model? If teachers can change from being only classroom only to being online only within the space of a couple of months across the nation, I'm sure that the rest of us can really re-examine how we do what we do. And my hats are off to teachers and nurses at this time. Number 3, retarget your fundraising away from community campaigns, much more towards philanthropists who will give more and have fewer of them. Community is struggling at the moment, and you would know this. And if you do receive community support, this is going to be one of the areas that we're already seeing 30, 40, and 50% drops. And this will get worse as the economic conditions unveil themselves. The 5th step for you to take right now is to reboot your engagement with government. If you don't have a structured government engagement approach, then I would thoroughly recommend you look at that. Check out Neil Farrow. If you do a Google search, Neil's an expert in this area. He talks about how social sector can best engage with government. If you do have a government engagement process in place, consider rebooting it. And I'm going to talk more about that later on. How do we make your engagement with government more meaningful for government? The 6th thing is to convert your corporate relationships into in-kind support. Now, the reason I say that is because many corporates will be cutting back the dollars that they can provide in support of the arts or social sectors. But they still have people and they can still volunteer. So instead of going from something to nothing, go from something to time of their professionals to support your organization. And final suggestion might be to start exploring collaborative, creative partnerships that not only are about saving money, but could be about generating new offers. So we had 6 ideas, but 3 overarching themes about what you can do decisively now. There's a tip slide that I've just shown now, and it's basically got one model on it. It's a square model. It's called the business model canvas. If you can look the business model canvas up, it's a really terrific tool to help you make smart decisions about your business model so that you can make those hard decisions. The business model canvas has been adapted to many sectors, and it's a terrific way for you to understand what goes into your organization, what you do with it to produce the things that you produce. In your case, arts and cultural experiences. Have a look at the business model canvas. There are canvases that have been created for arts and cultural organizations, and see what you can do and lean on what others have done to make some of those decisions. With regards to government engagement, here's another slide now. It's titled tip number 2, government engagement. And with government engagement, let's just focus on 5 key areas. When you think about engaging with government now, their time is paused. Their work is primarily focused on COVID and recovery. Things outside of that are not necessarily going to get that attention. So focus your thinking on how to adjust to government time. Your stakeholders, when engaging with government, make government aware of all the stakeholders that rely on you and the impact to them that you have. This is absolutely critical for government. When you're thinking about those stakeholders, make sure, we've got a little picture here of Salesforce, which is a customer relationship management piece of software. We're not endorsing that one, we're using it as an example. When engaging with government, make sure you understand all of your constituents, all the people that come to you, that work with you, understand who they are and where they live. Because if you can start to map your services, your arts and cultural effects on an electorate, you start to get political currency to talk to ministers and their advisors about how important you are, about the benefit you bring to your communities. So catching who you engage with through a CRM, mapping the data, and then mapping that to electorates might sound sophisticated and difficult. It's actually not all that difficult. And it is the groundwork of a great influencing approach for government. Government are after metrics of impact, and the arts and cultural organizations are terrific ways to impact and benefit community. Show them and be explicit about it. So those 2 or 3 ideas were ideas about the now. I've moved on to a slide which talks about the next. When we think about strategic thinking, you're obviously thinking, George, where is my SWOT analysis, my Pest, or where are we starting to talk about the strategic plan? We will get to that, but I just want to get our heads in the right place first. So we talked about now, next, and after. I've just drawn up a slide which is titled Next, Building Back Better. This is our opportunity for transformation. We should be using this time to not just be what we were before, but to try as best as we can to be something better. So I've got 4 suggestions for you to look at here in getting your mind prepared for your strategy. First of all, can you activate community fundraising campaigns that build on a new future? Now, don't forget I said in the first now phase, de-emphasize community fundraising. What I'm saying here is once you've de-emphasized it, start to retask it for the future. Could it be better? Could it build on something? Could it create better communities? Secondly, explore commercialization. I cannot tell you the number of organizations who started their strategy and said, there's nothing we've got that we could sell or commercialize. And by the end of the process, have ended up with significant incomes from earned revenue sources like this. You will have something, IP, some performance approaches, some documentation, some skills that you can commercialize. It's just a matter of digging often. The third area is exploring partnerships. Times of adversity often cause us to get into partnerships which actually we should have done a long time ago. Whether they're structural partnerships, mergers or acquisitions, or whether they're just collaborations where you do a set of functional activities like marketing and finance, and another organization picks up other ones like communications and government engagement. Think about and explore some partnerships which make sure that you're not duplicating jobs or functions across organizations. And then the fourth area is your sector needs your help and you need your industry and sector. Are there collaborations and opportunities for whole of sector approaches to think differently about arts and culture, and in doing that, position that better to government? Again, just work with me. The process works. This is the second step of this whole approach. We've done the now, we've done the next. In doing the next, here are 5 technology tools that we're calling tip 3. This slide has 5 bubbles on it. Each bubble contains a technology tool for better engagement that you can use in isolation and remotely. Zoom, we're already talking about. Mural is a terrific whiteboarding tool for people to share ideas online, and it can have massive numbers of people at any one time. Slido is a terrific tool to have engagement, voting, and other kinds of feedback from large communities online. The Google Suite and Microsoft Teams are available for arts, culture, not-for-profit organizations at discounts, we understand, and they have free versions. But more importantly, you can have people from outside your organization share and collaborate on documents together. Those are the 5 of the 6 tools that we use in our practice, and we've worked with organizations that have had co-design and engagement with literally hundreds of people at any one time. These are great engagement tools that can help you build back better. So I'm now moving to a new slide, which is titled After. It's the third of our time horizons. And I've got in this slide about 5 predictions. Now we're starting to fine tune our thinking and get ready to refresh our plan. So the predictions that I'm making are as follows. The first one is I'm predicting that new power and distributed power is going to really overtake centralized power in the after period. What that means for you is building strong and direct engagement with consumers is going to help you reach them, mobilize them, and get advocacy for what you do a lot better. Gone are the days where you don't have to worry about who attends your experiences. You have to. New power and the distributed way in which people are voting online with their activity and voice is the way of the future. The second thing, hybridized work, where basically this is not just sometimes working at home and sometimes working in the office. This is down to the very way in which we manage our time. The boundarylessness of work and home is going to become just the way we work. We'll do a little bit of work and get up from our desk and go and put the washing on or see to the kids and then come back and do a bit more work. Our hours will not be 8:30 to 5:30. So what this means is we're going to have to revamp our business models around totally flexible and more outcomes-oriented activities rather than tasks and time. The arts and cultural organizations that can get on top of this will be ahead. The third one is place-based. I'm seeing that we're moving even more and more into place-based outcomes. Complex supply chains around the world are shrinking under what's happening at the moment, and communities are demanding more locally produced products, services, and experiences. We can really take a whole of community view in the arts and cultural space in a way that other sectors can't, and really mobilize community to become not only loyal, but to grow and learn through arts and culture. And I know you know this because this is the way many of your organizations are based. I'm seeing this is going to be a revelation to many organizations that are not used to place-based thinking. The fourth area is wealth concentration. I'm predicting that we're going to see further concentration where the wealthy will own more. What this means for you is that the philanthropists and concentrations of wealth are the places that you should go in looking for support, rather than the broad-based. Go broad-based for political support, and for connection, go concentrated for wealth and fundraising. And finally, less government spending is my prediction. The government's checkbook is burning with the amount of checks that it's writing, how quickly it's writing them. It can't keep spending money the way it is. We're already into the next generation's endowments, entitlements with the current stimulus. We can expect that that's going to get hard. So look for alternative revenue streams, partnering to reduce costs and increase efficiency. Look at markets for digital exploration of your experience for those that are not already doing it. I know it sounds obvious, but we really are going to have to come to terms with a world with much less government funding. So I'm going to move slides now. And I just wanted to give you 3 or 4 opportunities. And this slide is a slide which has 4 dot points, and it's titled Step 3, Lean into Your Strengths. Do you remember I started with a 5-step process? We're almost at the strategic plan, and the steps, this is step 3. I probably feel like you're already well placed for partnerships. And my suggestion in preparing for strategy in uncertain times would be to dive deeper into your partnerships. We have a white paper called Together We Do Better, and we produced that with the Young and Well Cooperative Research Centre, which was a group of 75 organisations collaborating around youth mental health and wellbeing online. If 75 organisations can come together and develop and do what they did, I'm sure that we can all take a lesson from that. So lean into your strengths. You're already good at collaborating and communicating. Lean into that through partnerships. I think you're already good at earning revenue. I think there are new and creative ways to do that. In the arts and cultural sector, I see some incredibly innovative approaches to this. So learn from each other. Again, our white paper, In Search of Sustainability, talks to this. The third area that I've said about government engagement, I think that this is a mixed bag in the arts and cultural space. I think some organisations have got this down pat, and I think other organisations are yet to learn. I think this is, as a sector, however, the thing that seems to be missing is coordinated approaches to this across the different sub-segments of your sector. And the fourth one really is about digital. The opportunity for digital is immense. It broadens your markets. It opens up opportunities to new power bases, to new consumers, to new communities. Digital is not the savior, but it is certainly should be one of the elements of your new strategy. If I were to not know your organization and say, as a template, you know, what are the 4 pillars that a new strategy in times of uncertainty should have in an arts organization? I would say these 4. Strong partnerships, how are we going to create our own financial resilience, how are we going to engage with government better, and what's digitally up for us. So let's move along to that, refreshing the plan. It's taken me 24 odd minutes to get to this point, but I really wanted our minds to be aligned. The final 10 minutes we're going to talk about will be about refreshing your plan. So your plan, this slide is just an introductory slide, and what we're going to do is move into the next slide, which talks about what's the minimum that you need in a good strategy. Now, I've got about 7 or so bullet points on this slide. It's just a slide with bullet points, and this is the minimum. If you're refreshing your strategy, I would expect you to have a belief statement. People used to do visions and missions. I don't think that's appropriate for our sector. A belief statement. What do you believe and why do you believe it? Why does your organization exist? Purpose. What are you going to do? How are you going to drive achievement of the belief statement? I'll give you an example. In my organization, our belief statement is this. We believe that every social problem we face is solvable but as a community, we're just making choices not to. That's our belief statement. So our purpose statement is to help leaders across the sectors make different choices to improve our social justice and improve our world. You see how purpose shows how what we're doing achieves what we believe. After belief statement and purpose comes value. What value do we create so as to achieve our purpose? In my case, I help organizations develop strategic plans to achieve their purpose and realize their belief. The fourth area is success. What does good look like? Your strategy, be it 1 page or 4 pages, needs to show what good looks like at the end of that strategy. And then finally, you need 3 sort of more action-oriented components. What are your priority areas? What are the actions you're going to take? And the targets, how do we know when you've achieved it? So those 7 things are the minimum of what strategy should look like. And I've picked those 7 because in times of uncertainty, if you can get these 7 nailed and really clear, you'll create a great platform for your execution. So I've moved on to a slide which just has 4 more bullet points. I'm keeping these slides nice and light. What should your strategy look like? You need cut through in uncertainty because there's going to be a lot of people producing a lot of content and a lot of webinars and material. Your strategy, in order to get cut through, needs to be inspiring. It needs to be friendly to read. It needs to be relatively short and visually very easy on the eye. And if we get time, I might walk you through 1 or 2 quick examples of that to help you along the journey. So here's the step-by-step guide to developing your refreshed strategy in times of uncertainty. Number 1, and this slide just has 4 logos horizontally, and each logo outlines a step in our process. This process is available on our website, and I'm happy to share some slides later on. And again, just email me at george@sparkstrategy.com.au. So our step-by-step guide has 4 steps. The first one being objectives. Make your objectives clear, and in times of uncertainty, make sure that your objectives are succinct, not too broad and not too aspirational, but not just about survival. Survival and a little bit more. Be clear about your objectives. The second thing that we do in our way of strategic planning is we don't then dive into what the usual strategic planning process is. SWOT analysis, what's going to go on in the world in 3 or 4 years' time. We forget all of that. All those traditional strategic planning tools, Pest reporters, analysis, and we just simply focus on ideas. What ideas do we have to achieve our purpose? What ideas do we have to achieve our beliefs, to see our beliefs come to reality? We set our objectives, we have some ideas. Once we have ideas, then we use the older strategic planning tools like SWOT analysis and Pest analysis and Porters. If you want to look them up, they're great tools, but we use them to stress test our ideas, not just to dream up what could possibly happen in the next few years. Our ideas, our aspirations, our creativity are the basis of our logic, not the other way around. Step 3, stress test your ideas. Stress test them against your community, against your partners, against your team, against your board or council. Make sure you have a number of people testing your ideas. The ideas that survive your testing are then the ones that go into your plan for actions to execute. So let's just do that again. Set clear and focused objectives, and in times of uncertainty, make them narrow. Number 2, come up with ideas to achieve your purpose given the adversity or the uncertainty that you're facing. 3, stress test those ideas to the point of breaking, and any that survive the stress testing. 4, put them into action plans with measurables and outcomes. Might sound pretty straightforward, but you'll be surprised for those of you who've done strategic planning for a while. By switching ideas and testing in the order of this process, it makes a massive difference, especially in our sector. Now, I've got a slide which talks about objectives, and I'm going to quickly skim through this and just say it has 4 points. We just want to know what we want to achieve. Is there anything from the last plan we've got to carry forward? And what are our major risks? Those are probably 3 of the 4 major things in our objectives. I've just skipped through because I want to show you a plan that we worked with a little while ago. And the plan now is quite a colourful plan, quite a colourful document, rather, slide. It's a black document with a lot of beige and orange writing on it. And it was developed as part of our work, working with one of our rural and remote Aboriginal communities. And their vision is that all Anangu living well in both worlds. Their purpose was to support all Anangu, especially women and children, to have a good life guided by culture and sound governance through the collective agency of women. They then wrapped around a central concept 5 or 6 key themes for their objectives. They wanted an Anangu culture and governance and agency, operational excellence, so they want to be good at what they did. They wanted to have evidence-based in what they do. That's about helping government and funders fund them. They wanted strong relationships and partnerships with other organizations. They wanted their voice to lead, and they wanted financial resilience. Now, I'm showing you this as a little bit of an example, just to help us say, George, that's nice. How do I make those things come real? And what you'll see in this, they were facing significant uncertainty when they were developing this plan. And their ideas around the agency, around voice, and around evidence-based practice was their insights into how do they get ahead of the curve. Their concept around never giving up and standing strong lent into their values. They came up with this at a time of uncertainty, and I would encourage you to really deep dive into this particular strategy. So what I'm going to do now is see if I can make the technology help me a little bit further. I'm going to click through. Case study 2 was around Surf Lifesaving New South Wales. That's an introductory slide I have now, and I'm going to move forward into their very first page that they published was Our Beliefs. And you can see how strong their beliefs were. Surf Lifesaving New South Wales were also facing considerable uncertainty. The national body had a very clear patch in which it operated, but this more regional body didn't quite understand where it was going. In their uncertainty, we also completed this during a time of broader uncertainty, they went to beliefs. As a result of this strategic plan and a beliefs-based focus, which you'll see on the next slide also has a large circle here with a number of objectives, you can see evidence is very much key to their approach as well. As a result of this plan, they were able to secure $18 million of funding because they were clear as to who they were, what they're trying to achieve, how they're going to go about doing it, and what are the actions they're going to do to achieve it. Again, a plan developed under uncertainty, but very much focused on what are our objectives, what are the ideas we have to achieving those objectives, how do we stress test those objectives and make them compelling, and then how do we implement. Hopefully this is starting to give you a little bit of comfort that whatever you develop, small or grandiose, is going to be able to help you get there. Now, I'm just conscious of a little bit of time, Kevin, so I'm going to speed through the final little bits here. I had another case study, which I'm just going to click through. I'm sorry if it seems a bit fast. So we've talked about objective setting. I've talked to you about ideas. Third area is testing your ideas. The first test that you do for any good strategy in crisis is, does this new plan help us make any decisions? Does it help us say what we are going to do and what we are not going to do? The second test you put to it, have we forgotten something? Get some critical friends to have a look at this and see if you've forgotten anything major, because in times of crisis, we can sort a little bit too quickly. The third step in testing is, does this demonstrate our value? Are we really showcasing our heart and soul, who we are and what we do, and how we create value for community? The fourth phase is, does it factor external trends, which is really relevant now? Does it factor the fact that we may or may not be able to attend venues? Does it factor in the fact that more people are consuming more digital media? Does it factor into the fact that there's going to be a very large economic recession? Does it factor into the fact that we're going to have young people who are going to experience extended periods of unemployment, underemployment, or that we have 1 million Australians who are going to be underemployed? That has two sides of the equation. Does your plan directly address those factors? In times of uncertainty, I would make sure that you're calling this out. And I think I'm just going to move forward now to one of the little tools. I've only got a minute to do this. There is a tool called Pestal Analysis, or Pest. It stands for Political, Economic, Socio-Demographic, and Technological. The slide outlines that, and it has the 4 letters highlighted with those words. Political, What's going to happen in the political domain that will affect my strategy? Economic. What's going to happen in the economic world that will affect my strategy? Socio-demographic. What's going to happen in that world that will affect my strategy? And technological. What will happen from this space that will affect my strategy? Get specific about each of these. What's going to happen politically? Are we going to have changes of government, changes of members? What's going to happen economically? We've talked about that. Technologically, what are the opportunities? Get really specific and say, I've come up with these great ideas in this time of uncertainty. Run them through this little filter and see what happens, whether your ideas get stronger or whether in fact they get ruled out. I'm going to advance my slide now and say, come back to that tool, the business model canvas. Once you've had these ideas and you've stress tested them and they still stand, run them through the canvas. It will tell you what partners you need, what channels to consumers you need, what stakeholders you need. It will help you work those things out. I thoroughly recommend it as a step at this point. And then finally, the planning. If you're only doing a small strategic plan, make sure that probably about 1/3 of it is focused on this area. How do we track progress and performance in time of uncertainty? Do we need to be less quantifiable, more qualitative? What are our key projects for the next years? And when I say key projects, I'm thinking 3 or 4. I'm not thinking 15 to 20 like we may have in our old strategic plans. In times of uncertainty, strategy is as much about execution as anything else, and you have limited resources. So focus your time and your energy on 3 or 4 key projects each year, nothing more. And finally, what will we do differently that we didn't do in a previous period? I think there's, I've moved the slide on now to 4 or 5 bullet points. I think there's one more thing I'd like to wrap up before we can get into some questions. When we talk about relentless execution, we really want you to be focused on getting the absolute right things done and not getting distracted. So let's talk about 4 points which speak to this. Firstly, in times of uncertainty, it's no different to times of certainty. Your structure, who you employ, what they do will follow your strategy, not the other way around. You will relentlessly hone your structure so it delivers your strategy and nothing else. Second point is cut off all the extras, all the nice to haves. Sometimes we do a lot of work and we produce documents or we produce reports and we don't actually know why we're doing them. This is a perfect time in uncertainty to go to almost startup type thinking in how you're going to execute, how you're going to implement your strategy. The third area is get it done. Be accountable. And hold others accountable considerately. I think it's really important that we focus on the getting it done and being accountable. Often that can be an uncomfortable conversation. And fourth, lead, connect, be vulnerable, both yourself as a leader, but also allow your team to become vulnerable and your organization. Connecting with others is the survival pathway, I think, for many organizations through this uncertainty. If you can connect to others, values-aligned organizations, and you can align everything that you do to your purpose, you will be able to cut off the extras, keep people accountable, and you'll be able to execute your strategy. I know that that's been a very fast run through. I've moved on to a slide which is titled questions, but I do want to leave a little bit of time and we can go back and revisit some of those slides. But I just, if I can, sort of wrap that up in a summary. First, step 1, breathe, and use some of our ancient traditions to help guide your thinking and focus your thinking about yourself, your team, and the world. Secondly, once you've done that reframing, very much focus yourself on what are the opportunities around us. I think getting your head into the now, next, and after will help you create that focus and not make it seem so daunting. Once you've kind of got that sorted, understand your context, understand what's going on around you, but keep it tight in this time of uncertainty. Move into your planning, which is step 4, in a very concise kind of way. Create something that's easy to look at, that's short, 1 to 4 pages, that is really tightly focused on only a few objectives, but we're going to do them really well. Engage with government, look at digital, look at partnerships. And finally, make sure that your implementation plan is really doable, it's tight, and you're only focused on a few quick key things. You're going to have possibly less resources, so let's really use them really well. So hopefully you're still here and we've gone through those slides. I'm open for questions, but as I've said, there are about 6 white papers that we can share with you. And if you do want them, just email me at george@sparkstrategy.com.au. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Maybe we can have a look at some of the questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you so much, George. That was really thought-provoking and so timely for what I know from what many organizations will be going through in the coming months. So let's take some questions now, George. So there's a couple of ones that already come through, but if anyone else has got any questions, feel free to just pop that into the Q&A section and we'll try and get through as most we can. So let's just get cracking if that's okay. The first question comes from Angela, and she was wondering, do you have any sort of ideas around, particularly your provocation around exploring digital, as to whether, how can we create cut-through what is, of course, such a busy and crowded digital market already? Have you seen any sort of ideas with any other clients, or do you have some specific ideas potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I'm really getting less and less enamored with broadcasting digital offers, like using social media. I think there's 2 ways to go here. One organization that I just worked with came up with a nutritional guidebook, which was designed to help people who had limited budgets, for example, be able to feed their families nutritionally. And they made a decision, you know what, we're going to put this out to community and we're going to charge a certain amount for access to the app. We're going to use a closed Facebook group to do it. And they went absolutely nowhere. And their content was excellent. They then circled back around and decided, you know what, we're actually going to advertise on Facebook. They found a philanthropist who was willing to fund it. They advertised and they ran an event where at that event, they demonstrated some procurement. They demonstrated how to prepare food. They ended up getting 1,000 people who came to that event, and each person spent $25. They made back their marketing because each of those people then signed on to take the product and go from there. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, when you've got your digital product, think of creative ways in which to involve philanthropy to help you reduce the cost of sharing it. Don't just rely on organic. Put an event in front of something and people will tend to come to events. And then off that event, then try and create your community and sell to your community. The second thing is, be authentic. There's no marketing whiz-bangery. There's no flaming logos. There's no pictures that are going to make your product any better than its best value. So focus on value to the consumer, what they really want, not what you think they want, even in the digital space, and get promoters and people behind you, and it will get legs. It's been our experience.
Great. Next question is, thanks for that, George. The next question is from Huhui. And the question is, do you have any ideas for tools that are low cost or preferably free for organizations to use to both track and to analyze and communicate their impact, and particularly around measuring their impact, to be able to communicate that, for instance, to government? Have you seen sort of any examples that can be used?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question. So firstly, without getting too philosophical about it, I would encourage you to focus less on impact measurement and more on impact assessment. Government is moving away from impact measurement, even though they still call it that. Impact measurement was based on an old concept called social return on investment, largely, SROI, where we tried to give a dollar value for every dollar government gives us. We return $8, let's say, in community benefit or arts benefit. Now government is looking for, yes, give me some hard numbers, but I also want some stories from consumers, and I want some of your opinions as to what works and what doesn't work. So government is now looking for these holistic quantitative and qualitative responses. The best approach is I understand that CSI, the Centre for Social Impact, is developing a platform where you can log your impact so that government can see it, but it's not been fully deployed yet. And I don't know that there's an overarching platform that I would recommend. I would, however, recommend you moving your engagement with government to those 3 things: to an impact assessment approach with quantitative numbers where you can find them, stories about consumers, how they've enjoyed your arts or cultural experience and what it's meant to them, and then your view on the impact that it's having.
One more question, George. When we ask ourselves, what is our purpose? What do we mean? Do you have any advice around really how to unpack that question around what is our purpose? I know that you've spoken about this before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more than just an existential question, and it's not just a midlife unraveling question. And take it from me, I know that. Our purpose is crucial to understanding why we do anything and why we do what we do. And I've come now through very firmly to the belief that we can't invent this, nor can we adopt this. This is something we need to go on a journey for ourselves. And I got this awakening in the territory and one of the projects that we did. Our purpose, your individual purpose, has to come first, and then the organization's purpose. Because sometimes you'll get to your purpose and realize that you shouldn't be where you are working right now. And I think it's a ultimately human experience to unpack that. And what I mean by that is very, very clearly, why am I here and what am I doing here? And what do I want to do with the time that I have here? It's a hard conversation to have, but if you can have it honestly with yourself and resolve it, then you can turn to the organization that you're with. And if those things still align, you can then, with conviction, get behind what the organization's doing and help your team to discover their purposes. I cannot express to you that if I were investing in an organization where the purpose of its leadership, all of the leadership and its team, was lined up to the organization's purpose versus an organization that was making money hand over fist, long-term sustainable, the first organization would win hands down. And it's been my experience now in 25 years of doing this work.
That's great final insight. George, thank you so much. And thanks everyone else for joining us. But before everyone goes, just a quick reminder, we've got a couple of really exciting webinars still coming. This Friday, we are joined by Dr. Carol Johnson, who will explore effective strategies for teaching music specifically online. So please join us for that. And then on the actual valuing and measuring impact, we are joined by Dr. Jackie Bailey from BYP Group, who I highly recommend for you to join us for both of those. Thanks everyone for today. And just to say a big thank you for joining us for this session and sharing your thoughts and experiences with each other. And thank you, George, for a very insightful session. And thank you for our Auslan interpreters. We look forward to seeing you again next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.